Hi, Dads. Back at you with some father-daughter stuff here on today. But a couple weeks ago, I threw out this idea that dads make such a profound difference when it comes to the lives of their children, far more than they realize, I think. That belief has been reinforced in really a number of ways for me. Premarital counseling, working with parents, marriages, and even counseling some of the kids over the years. But one of the things that encouragements for me, I've had the benefit actually of being able to read more on fathering and parenting. But one of the books I came across there was a book called Always Daddy's Girl. And it challenged me more than any other book in trying to relate to my daughter. But today I want to use a passage of scripture that I used about a week or so ago. And that passage speaks volumes toward a loving and engaged father. And at the core, it gives a picture of God as father, but it's the prodigal son story. But there's a verse there that speaks and is very pointed to the father's loving his children and the application as we look at our kids. Now, the context, again, if you remember, the son rebels and he's coming back. But Luke 15:20 says this: while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. And he ran to his son and he threw his arms around him and kissed him. Now, we need to catch this first action that demonstrated the love there, the father toward the son, and we need to apply that to our daughters. But that phrase, his father saw him from a long way off. So the question, dads, do you see your daughters? Now, no matter what the age, do you see them in terms of where they're at emotionally, spiritually, intellectually? The depths of where they're at, are they discouraged or encouraged? Do you watch and gaze at your daughter to understand who she is as a young woman? But that example of a dad intentionally looking out for his child, it forces us to become more intentional with our kids and especially with our daughters. Dads, I think it's easier to be intentional with our sons and our daughters. I think we're more comfortable with that, and I understand that in that context of being a guy. But the phrase a long ways off implies intentionality, that he was looking. Now, there was a stat that I mentioned a couple weeks ago that I discovered years ago, and the connection of your relationship with your daughters, whether you're physically absent or emotionally absent, there's something that occurs when a dad's kind of left out of the picture. There's low motivation in a daughter's life. There is lower self-esteem in a daughter's life, and they are far more susceptible to group and peer influence, which often leads to juvenile delinquency. And that's just a fact that's really out there. So let me push you on this issue. It's the issue of intentional time. And see, you must make an effort to individually connect relationally with your daughters. And the older they get, I think the more important. And don't wait until, you start young, but as they get into that early teen years, it is absolutely deeply important. One on one is really the name of the game. So nothing can replace time with them. It might be reading with them as they're younger, but think of it even now at this time, an individual breakfast in a different room or a lunch, or what does it mean to make them feel special? But if you're going to do it, got to work off a calendar. There's just no other way. If you don't schedule it, it's going to go away and be filled by other stuff. But think about even this next week. How about a drive through with one of your daughters? Go get some ice cream or some takeout and just sit in the car and talk, ask questions, and take advantage of this Sabbath rest from the sports and the activities, and make some one on one time priority. But there's a second issue here as well, I just want to point out. It's learning the intentional skill of talking with them versus at them. And that is the starting point, talking with them instead of at them. When I ask kids which way does it usually work, and it's almost always my parents talk at me. So dads, you got to learn that art of actually asking questions about them. It is so critical in that. But dads, you matter in their lives. And again, when I come back to college ministry and working with college over the years, when you ask that question, who's the influencer spiritually in your life? You know what they come back with? Mom rather than dad. And dads, I think there's a poor excuse when we say this. Mom is just better at it than I am. And this is where we got to learn the skill. We got to learn that art of talking with our kids in that. But I want to leave you with a quote just to kind of tease you with where I'm going to go next time. And this is from a Christian counselor, a gal. Says a daughter desperately needs to know not just what her dad thinks, but what he thinks of her. Not only that, but she will internalize his view of her. A daughter may act like she doesn't care what her dad has to say, but underneath it all, she does care. The reality is that she doesn't ever want to be a disappointment to him, which happens to be one of the most frequent comments that girls tell me in my counseling office. Dads, you make a difference. And we're going to unpack that a bit more even next week as to what unique things that you influence your daughter on. So this week, love your daughters. Yes, love your sons as well, but take some time and be intentional with them and begin to talk with them rather than at them. So have a great week, be intentional, and see you next time.